Right, we're gonna get going. Slight change of setup tonight. We're going to do public participation first. So who would like to start? Former council activity, you want to know?
Thank you, next colleagues and friends. One of the reasons why I pulled out is what I'm saying now. And that is at the sequel, as you know, it belongs to Cornwall Council, and they're going to destroy it. But we managed to survive and keep it intact, and it's got more strengths and strengths, and there's a lot of good quality people behind the scenes making it work. What I'd like this council to do is to take the ownership back of county, like devolution, and into the town council. Now, the old council didn't want to know that because one or two members thought, oh, there's going to be some cost implications, and we can't afford that, so let county sort it out. But my argument is in 2030, it's our 100-year anniversary of the sequel, and obviously we will make a big splash nationally and locally about it. So that's number one. And not only taking the pool back, but the county kept the path out to the pool themselves as well. So that path out to the pool doesn't belong to the town, belongs to the county. So in that same approach, they obviously kept the path so they can get out to the pool without incurring the loss of the town council. You know. So I would like you to think about that, discussing whatever activities you like about getting the devolution of the council to take over the running, the ownership of the sequel and that path that leads out. That's number one. And the other thing is the sequel have wanted to have some donations recently. And we are planning to, on the top, readjust the centre and have a large community building at the top. Because the community building at the moment, if you are aware, it's halfway down. People can't get to it. It's very poor design. It's basically a large changing room for the boats and people like that who use it in the winter. But all it is a store for goods that we sell down on the pool itself. But I would like, again, by 2030, and the thing is, the land that it's on belongs to the county, and where the property would be on the top belongs to the county in theory, but obviously access and drains and stuff have to go through the downs to the cricket field. So it's a long-term plan. We've got to try and get it in place by 2030. And who knows? And as I say, there's no way. People are viewed like this, staying that way, but it will be a viewed-based organisation that will set it up. In other words, the people of Bude will have their say in what goes on. So it's those two things. It is taking ownership of the pool back to the town, taking ownership of the path, and also giving you forewarning that we intend to have a lovely community building on the top that anybody can use, anybody can book. You know, so if you've ever been inside the RLI hut that's at the top, you'll appreciate how wonderful that view is, and that could be for everybody in view if they're so. So those are the two things. And because I know how view works, the reason why I put off the council is that we'll be working on this, and there'll be none of that activities in the council sort of anything else, you know. So I pulled off to do that to make sure that would work. All right. So that's all I want to say, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Chris.
Well, as you know, we are opening the box. Anybody can come and see process. One will be pleased to see the family. For some reason, the numbers appear to be down. And I have no understanding why that is, because we know that social media is used, we do all that stuff, we got posts and all that. So I'm really a bit disappointed with that. If you were interested in coming on two separate visits on the 7th and 1st of October, which would be a free visit to various sites of the canal. The only cost would be that you would have to pay. You need to book, and you would have to pay for your refreshments at the Riverwoods Inn. This again is a bit of a puzzle because I'm not yet to the point that I haven't had any with that person, and my fellow trustees decided that it would be kept in the end of September. We haven't got, then we will do it on the 31st of October. There's some interesting things that sales and and of course, I can sell. What I want to say about this, I'm not going to do, but I would be really surprised that the UK and just take this apart. If they would find that their lives become a lot easier. I should be interested to know when they, what they need to know and the times and stuff. Well, we're going to get I mean, so two million members of the public, and I'm really sincerely wishing you luck with that because I think you really like it once you get it.
Yeah, I've pretty got a question for Pete. The dredging scheme for the canal, is that going ahead?
Sorry, the which scheme?
The dredging,
Yes.
both sections.
So some of the canal has already been dredged.
At the top set, I'm talking about
Yeah.
from the lock gates to Falcon Bridge.
So what I've been told is, that you know this better than I do, is that the sections are divorced to some degree from each other because part of it is the maritime harbour port, which is from Falcon Bridge to Lock Gates.
Yeah.
I'm told that will be dredged. And I'm told that the section from Falcon Bridge going up to almost the section that had been previously dredged will also be dredged. However, on purpose, they're leaving a relatively short bit, and they described it as a refugia to allow wildlife to remain undisturbed for an amount of time. I've asked the officers separately if they'll consider dredging that part also, given a reasonable amount of time after the current dredge operates, so it's dredged all the way to the bridge.
Okay, just the last part of your meeting. The maritime managers asked about the dredging, and he ducked a lot of the questions. He was very, very vague about the section they have. And
So
that,
I think I might have a stab at answering that, but I don't want you to quote me on this. Like, this is what I understand. Is that they have done bathymetric surveys of the harbour.
they did
And
that.
it's not as silted as bathy as they thought it. So instead of a global dredging of 100 days, they're only going to
The high school,
strategic areas.
that's what it says on the notice to mariners,
Yes.
that they're going to dredge it. Now that notice to mariners has come off the end of the harbour master's office, but they are still both online.
Okay. Well, if that situation has changed,
Yeah.
they haven't told me. I can follow it up and up. But I doubt it would have changed.
Okay, the other question I have is on the culvert at Weir at Walesborough. Has been silted up for 10, 15 years. Couple, end of August, it's been dug out. And I believe you said it's to allow water to be taken from the top part of the canal when it's low. And there's low water up there. Now that's the reason that the harbour authority stopped the lock gates from being opened, because of the abstraction licence they have only lets them take half the flow of the weir. So now the council have dug out the culvert up there, which allows water to flow from lower than the fishery. So if you're allowed to do that, they'll stop and boats from coming, gives you the control of doing that. and it's outside of the extraction license.
Okay, so if I was aware that they were doing some work in that zone, the level of detail in your mind is greater than mine. I was told that the work was to allow warm water to flow into the canal system.
That's no, because the extraction license is a fish river.
Yeah.
That the culvert is lower than the fish river.
Mm.
So if you're taking it from there, you lower it from the fish river, which then stops you taking it down the canal.
To give you a sensible answer, I need to follow up with Charlotte Evans, who is responsible for doing that work.
Yeah.
And so if I could work around by week. Yeah.
The Cornwall Council will have an obligation to allow some water into the river. So their extraction license covers essentially water going on down the canal is taking it from the river. And so there will need to be a
50% of
Yeah.
the fish river.
so by opening the culvert and letting it back in the river, that's why that's not part of the extraction. It's essentially helping it onto the river. So there will be a balancing act between when they can allow boats in and out and when they can allow the least.
Basically, they can control how much water they let down.
Only
So if they let it down the river, they can stop boats.
Well, that won't be the intention. I mean, the intention
No,
will
they
be to
won't.
provide water in the river for the
Yes,
things that live in the river. And so there'll be that juggling act, which there always is. This just gives them another tool to
control the water flow into the canal and stop boats.
I don't think that would be the intention. There will
Well,
be.
it might not be an intention, but it will be a byproduct of it.
I think maybe the answer to your question is, it would appear that the Environment Agency have precedence over managing the flow of water through the river. And
But this has come from the council, it's not come from the Environment Agency.
Right. Well, I'll have to check that, because my understanding is it's not enough to sufficiently answer your question.
I'd appreciate it if we look at it.
It does have my understanding from Charlotte Evans is that they're measuring the buses we're at the right location where which caused some of the problems we had earlier. He is assured personally that they will always endeavour to balance the water 50% of the river, 50%.
The extraction license, if you take the lock, the operating locks takes about 680 cubic litres of water. If you take what you can from the extraction license, you could operate the lock 22 times every day, or you reach the limit that you can take.
Okay, well, I mean, Peter's obviously offered to
Okay, yeah.
carry out
Yeah.
some research and get back to you, so if you're happy with that, we'll move on.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Oh, good evening. Thank you, councillors. I've had a letter from the House of Commons from the Right Honourable Nick Gibbs MP, Minister of Schools, about the books and pride that are going in all the schools in this country and other countries. And he asked me to contact all the schools in this area to discuss this about these books that are radicalising these children. And I have had no response from any of them. I believe I sent you an email and a video of what's happening in schools. And I believe the council had an email from me as well with the video. Is that correct?
I've had some emails from you. I did try to phone you a couple of times as you requested. I spoke to your partner or whoever it was.
My wife.
Your wife, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and you weren't there.
No.
But
Thing is that what's happening to these children all over the world, and that video showed you that. Did you watch it?
I watched
Part of it.
the start of it, and yeah, it's obviously I am the mayor of this town. We are the council of this town. The schools are well above our remit.
Are they?
It's the Department of Education and the government. That's why you've got a letter from an MP telling you contact the schools.
And Catherine Keegan, who is the Secretary of State for Schools, and they told me to contact all the schools about it, and I've sent them the same videos, and I've had no response from them. And I'm not against anybody's way of living, whether you're gay or straight or anything. I'm 75 years old and I've lived in the Bude area all my life. I was born in Falkland Parish. And many people have lived here all their lives and we've had no trouble between the straight people and the gay people. And I've got nothing against them at all. I've got a niece that is a lesbian. She's 52 years old and she's got a partner, an adopted boy. And she's lived like that all her life. But she's against this as well. And I've heard of a lot of children walking out of these classes because of these books. Now, who put the books in the schools? I believe I heard that the council paid for them
We did
and put them in the
give,
schools.
we did give a grant, View Pride Education.
Yes.
Spent them on, I believe they found it carefully selected books. So we ourselves did not choose the books. We gave a local organisation a grant.
Yes.
And I personally would imagine that the school would have had some sort of editorial control over what goes into their library. So again, we are responsible for the money. We can't deny that. So yes, but what that money went on, my advice would be to go and contact the school governors because they are ultimately responsible for the running of the school in the immediate area. Above that is the Department of Education. There's really nothing we can do for you.
I emailed all the head teachers in the schools. And
Yeah.
I only had one email reply from the school saying that they've accepted my video and email.
Right.
And what is happening to these children? This is why they closed down the Tavistock clinic in London, because of what they were doing to these children. And they're now being radicalised by these books in the schools.
Right.
Now, the children's brains are not fully developed till they're in their mid-20s. So let them grow up and decide themselves with their parents when they get older. They should only be taught now about reading, writing, and arithmetic, the same as when I went to school.
Okay, well, I'm a lorry driver. I'm not qualified to talk about the education of children, quite honestly. I've given you your chance to speak.
Yes,
we
thank
did
you.
fund those books.
Yes.
That is our responsibility, but how that money was spent, how the books were chosen, and I don't know who in the schools would have had oversight of that. Like I said, that's why my advice would be to go to the school governors, because we did not get given a list of these are the books.
So you didn't.
So I have no idea what books were bought,
were put in.
what was in those books.
Well,
We gave a grant to a local organisation who selected the books themselves, and I would imagine those books would have been checked by somebody at the school, whether it was the librarian, the head, the governors. I honestly don't know.
Well, I've spoken to children that go in these schools in this area, and they've told me these books are about pride.
Well, yeah, my kids go to those schools, and
They
obviously
do.
I have seen some of the books, and
Yeah.
they're obviously.
Well, I've got nothing against people that are gay at all. It's like I say, my nieces. And live and let live. Everybody should do, and we always have done in the surrounding areas.
Mhm.
But I do not like this happening in the schools because I've seen horrific things on YouTube of what's happening to these children from the age of 5 or 6.
Yeah, but I wouldn't believe everything you see on the
No,
internet.
I agree with that.
Okay,
But
like I
there's been
said,
there's been proof.
you need to talk to the schools or the people that run the schools. I will quite happily take ownership of the fact that I think we gave them £800 and somebody can correct me
Well, I'm
on
not
that.
condemning you for that because you gratefully kept our shop open in Stratton, didn't you?
Yes,
You've done that, and I appreciate you doing that. But
Okay.
these books should not be in these schools. They need to be removed.
Well, you need to, I'm going to end it here. My final comment is going to be the advice again, to go to the governors or the head teacher, or above that, formal council in the Department of Education. Because, like I say, what happens with the grant money after we award it, you know, we do it with the best of intentions.
Yes,
and have lots
that's
of
fine,
local grants.
that's fine.
So, you know, you've had your say, and I'm going to draw a line on it there, okay?
Thing is, that this right honourable Nick Gibbs MP
Yeah.
said you need to contact schools to sort it out.
Well, oddly enough, that's what I'm advising you as
And I
well.
have done that, but I have no replies from them.
Perhaps go into reception and speak to them directly. All right, that, you know, if they're not responding, you can email, go into reception. That, but I'm going to draw a line there because it's an incredibly hot day and everybody,
Okay.
all right, you've had your say, and I appreciate you've come to us because we funded it, and that's a fair comment, but
That is the reason I came,
okay.
but to put it across, these
Yeah.
books need to be taken out of these schools.
Well,
in this area.
you've made that point eloquently to us. I
Yes.
suggest you, okay, but we are going to leave it there now. All right,
Thank
Darky.
you. Thank you.
It's not recorded straight then the other Sunday. No, I know, because this is our flag, this is formal. You wouldn't have took the Queen's flag there, that would be
Right,
right.
don't
No,
use
that
those
flag
terms,
should not be
Darky.
touched. It should be
It's
there.
the pride flag. Okay, did we take the formal flag down the other day?
Yeah.
We threw the England flag for the world ladies in the,
Shouldn't have been done.
well, I proposed that and we did it, okay? It was an
You wouldn't have
important
done the
national
flag
event.
benefit of the flag.
Do you know what that rainbow flag is about?
Please stop interrupting you. Yeah,
Yeah, so that it's actually in accordance with our protocol to be agreed by councillors. So if even.
This is me, this is Cornwall.
Even
Learn.
reaches the finals of the big sport event such as that, then the England flag will be flown. It doesn't happen very often and it has happened.
So you won't get right in front of me, then that's
and there was a Cornish maid in that team, Darky,
in short.
from Newquay. So evidently she thinks it's England.
Well, she's the.
And we supported that, which was the right thing to do. Anybody else on the end? No.
Just observing, thank you.
Fantastic. In that case, we will call public participation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Goodbye, Paul. I will see you at the seaport.
Yeah.
The farm.
Could I raise something really controversial on the public participation?
You want to settle there while you do it?
Well,
No,
well, if you like. No,
Go on.
yeah, I just, and I would have asked for this to be on the agenda if I thought of it at the time. It's to do with the community area partnership meeting next Thursday, next Monday evening.
Okay.
And one of the items on the agenda is the name for the new partnership. And I say, I was doing a little bit of fact checking relating actually to Stratton and Stratton Cultural Association. And anyhow, it occurred to me that all the parishes in the new area partnership were once part of the administrative area known as the 100 of Stratton. More laterally, in the southern parishes became part of the 100 of Lisnute. That covers Camelford and down almost to Balkan. So, it's given that Stratton unfortunately left the county and its influence over the years, I just thought it might be a way of, for history and heritage reasons, if this council feel about asking the area partnership if they'd consider the name Stratton and Lisnute.
Seems reasonable to me. It was
Well,
on Stratton and Les Youth. Ian, who was our resident Stratton expert. Sorry? Ian, sorry, he was Stratton, so.
yeah, I mean, obviously it's not an agenda item as such, so there's no opportunity to make an actual decision on that, but if members are minded for representatives attending that meeting to put that forward, then fine.
Would it be reasonable to put that in advance?
Yes, if that was also committed so much.
There are other notes with possible representation as well, the council maybe should consider.
We probably need to have a discussion about it.
That's what we're going to offline conversation.
Yeah,
I didn't hear that. That's it.
We're going to have a conversation offline about this concept. It's not on the agenda, so we'll put something out by email.
anybody else? Right. To receive and accept apologies and reasons for any non-attendance.
It's just councillor Walls who has a work.
To receive any declarations of interest on items on the agenda and note any dispensations granted. Thank you.
Just on 9B, just getting things we made.
Okay.
No dispensations.
Granted. To note any reports from common councillors.
Well, I have a verbal report here. I don't know if you're expecting a written report.
Give the verbal report, Peter. I'm sure we'll be fine with that.
Thank you. I'll make it as short as I can, so we do. Right, so I've been keeping relations going with our local policing team. We now have a new sector inspector who's a gentleman called Simon Andrews. We have a new neighbourhood officer called Nina Sargent. Good neighbourhood officer. At the moment, I mean, we had a very long chat with them. I took Sarah Ball, our community lead officer, up, and we spent some time in discussion with them. They believe that the top three issues being the drugs and social behaviour and road safety. But Nina has subsequently come back to them and said that she would like some input from the community about what the community thinks are the key policing issues that should be given priority, which is like the top five. So I've been to the school, this Bude school, met with the headmaster, and he's agreed to put out a consultation with parents. We will have input from the school and parents. But I rather think it'd be a nice thing for this council to have a future agenda item as soon as reasonably possible. So feedback will be identifying the top five behavioural policing issues that we would like to press their focus on. While I was at the school meeting with Mr. Wilkes, it came over that there are problems with the flood lighting on the Astro pitch, which is a huge amount of people who use sporting activities in evenings, particularly winter evenings, and they have got a £30,000 funding gap, meaning that they want to put new LED lights, which would be cost and energy saving on that. We work with schools to try and identify funding. But it's not beyond the realms of possibility of like I'm not with the council with some co-funding in that possible. Just to give you a brief one. I mentioned at the last council meeting and before that levelling up funding, we're getting very little interest in the Bude area. I've had further meetings with council officers because I'm annoyed that the appears to come up and put in all the applications to use up all of the money. There hasn't been an audit for the end. Right, but we need to get some applications coming in fairly quickly in this area to make sure that some of the money is actually comes into our part of Cornwall. And I've asked the Cornwall Council to do or to repeat funding work which they carried out here a couple of months ago. I'll make sure that's circulated through one of the we've been having rumblings on the number 6 bus yet again, because Stagecoach have decided they're going to close the depot. Which they currently have at Shants Yard, up on the outskirts of Stratton. And there has been some thoughts being given to me that is at the thin end of the wedge, and the Stagecoach are planning to cut further services for a number 6 service. I had a meeting with Cornwall Council, Transport Planning Officers and Stagecoach on Tuesday this week, and it's given their absolute assurance that service will be made more efficient with the closure of the yard, which I strongly understand. But they did explain it to me in a way that I can try and repeat to you. I won't do it now, but if anybody wants to spend time with me, I'll tell you what's going on there. But needless to say, I was convinced, but the conviction they gave to me, the number 6 service will remain unchanged at least for 8 years, which is the current contract time that the stage at which Trafford Devon Council is also co-funded by Cornwall. And I think I might have mentioned before, about a year or so ago, that Cornwall Council have been pushing and lobbying very hard for a tourism inquiry. For the Cornwall Council to have a really in-depth look at how communities respond to the changes in tourism. I'm glad to say that that inquiry has now been agreed, and that will be taking place in the autumn. I'll be taking part in it, but if anybody has a particular interest or would like to feed me any information regards how they feel about tourism, whether it's Airbnbs, whether it's traffic problems caused in the town, whether it's too many tourists, few tourists, whatever, I'm very interested in hearing from our community. Almost lastly, the traffic consultations for the traffic regulation orders about the changes of treatment of parking around Summerlees Terrace and the Quickness Triangle, which moves to one way from the end of Ocean View Road up to Sainsbury's, now live. So if anybody has a point of view on those, please respond. And finally, a bit of live news. It's not really Cornwall Council, so I do apologise for this. But my wife was a really keen fan of the Great British Sewing Bee. One of the finalists is a gentleman called Tony Rea. I've been working with him, the council for Mark Berridge has been working with him. We're preparing his exhibition, some of the garments that we prepared on the show, Great British Sewing Bee. Tomorrow, there's an exhibition live at the council for tomorrow, October. Please come and see it. Happily taking questions.
Darcy,
Who's responsible for emptying the bins around the town now?
So some are town council, some are Cornwall council.
I'm just wondering because I meant to bring it up the last meeting. About a couple of months back, I was down there at Stratton and this woman came along and she put some chuck about 20 plastic bottles into the rubbish bin. Shouldn't they put some recycling bins around?
It's the household's responsibility to recycle via the curbside collection.
Well, I take it was some Emmett because she got it with quite a lot of kids in it, just got to chuck all the rubbish in it. Well, it wasn't rubbish really, it was a lot of plastic bottles.
We did ask the environment climate change forum about recycling, putting recycling bins, and we were sure that our contract with the means that if they're recycling at the depot, so we don't need recycling bins in the town.
Right, that's okay then.
Just a quick one. What do you know about the planning application for the sand drains in from the council?
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
I've seen the old one, which is two or 3 years old, which was proposed to float to concrete
Yeah,
rather.
no, there's another pre-planning application.
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, I forget to give you the number, but
I'll look that up.
it's,
anything?
So, I guess just it's very quick on the consultation. One of them is actually what we asked for, which was the virtual footpath across the on the roads that truck us across down. It is really busy, like during the majority, especially there's a lot of people moving up and down there with two-way traffic and no footpath. So if you're supportive of having a footpath and reducing the road size there, then please do send me messages because we do actually listen to that consultation. And if they have the budget, they said to me they'll also try and squeeze in a quite proper sort of crossing at the top. So the same design of that road and the proper crossing over to the main dams as well. So it should really dramatically help with people coming from the campsite and the transferring. But we do get in your places these.
Okay. Anybody else? To receive and note the minutes of the previous meeting, 3rd of August 2023. I propose we do that.
That has an amendment to it.
Sure.
It's only a minor thing. I did declare an interest in the view of climate change before, and I did ask and was granted. I know I shouldn't have done at the time for dispensation just to sit in the room and listen. Which is what I did. It's a minor thing, but it did happen.
Okay. So with that amendment, we note them. Second, all in favour? Unanimous. Yes. Receive and note the minutes of the committee meetings, planning 16th and 30th of August 2023. All in favour? Abstained? Unanimous? Right. Oversight we can do, but depending on what happens later, it might very well be the very last oversight meeting. There's somebody's spoken to you, Philip, they potentially signing it off afterwards, depending on what happens. Okay, well, in that case, oversight committee, propose we, no, all in favour? Unanimous. Excellent. To approve recommendation from the oversight committee that BSTC hold a 4-day Bude Lit Fest for 2024, 3 days of ticketed events and 1 free family fun day on the last day. The budget to be up to 20,000 to include recording staff time and KPIs where possible, and that there be an aspiration to recoup 50% costs from revenue ticket sales and sponsorship. Would anybody like to speak about that news?
Well, all I'll say, first thing I'll say is I wanted to make sure, first of all, whether you wanted to actually take this now or whether you wanted to take it after item 9 on the agenda, depending on where you feel money's going to come from. In terms of the background to this, we've had a number of meetings in March where we looked at the analysis we've done this year's Literature Festival and some council meetings as well, and we kind of came up with this proposal, which we felt was a balance between the overwork and under-resource that was caused by the amazing Food Festival in 2023 and the desire of the system to run the Food Festival in 2024.
In regards to the finances, which you mentioned first, so obviously this event has taken place previously, and I think there was a willingness to see that happen again. The also the budget for that event would be set as part of the budget assessment this year because it's an event that's happening next year, so it's not going to impact on our current reserve situation. Just to make that clear, because we are really talking about reserves later on. So that is something we can anticipate going forwards.
I propose that we approve the recommendations.
Okay, all in favour? Unanimous. Again. Right. Item 7. Before we move on to this, we're going to have to resolve the suspend standing order 28.1, which is the one that effectively says that committees have to be set up and staffed at the main council meeting every year. So I propose that we do that. All in favour? Against? It's carried. Against and abstain? 1 abstain. Okay. Yeah.
You still where? I might just.
Just want to grab one of the ones on the end there, maybe?
Sorry. By that check. So I should have done that earlier. Share the number. Oh, sorry. That's my favorite. So I won't read through the reports unless there are any questions at all from anybody. Any of the topics in there. Obviously, this is to do with the proposals put forward to the committees. The terms of reference are attached, and if approved, will then form part of the standing orders as of tomorrow. So attached is also a meeting schedule for the remainder of this year, April, and then it was on the original paper, that one. So hopefully you can see on there. So it isn't exact 6 weeks, but it's essentially 8 to 9 per calendar year, roughly for each committee, and then they're all in similar order there. So the last thing, and obviously quite a lot of you have already come back with choices of which committees you would like to be on if it's best. There are some vacancies, and I know some people haven't put any choices forward yet, so those are two of you to decide.
I think I could say, yeah, we probably need to actually agree the structure and terms of reference first. So I'm going to propose that we do that.
Can I comment, please, on that aspect of it? If you recall, when we were comprehensive review of standing orders, one of the points I tried to make repeatedly was that, you know, standing orders should be designed for Bude-Stratton standing orders should be designed for Bude-Stratton purposes. And similarly, I think there's just one issue that I would like the council to consider, given that, dare I say, the present action of the councillors, but it would be worth considering the advisability of the full council electing the chairs rather than each committee electing its own chair. One of the things I feel about it is that if you've got councillors who can commit to several committees, up to 3 new committees, there were 3 votes on chairs. Somebody who, for whatever reason, can't commit so much, doesn't have any vote, and I feel that the chairs of the committees will have significant influence over the direction of the council over it.
Yeah, I take the point, Tom. When we sent out the thing asking people to nominate themselves for their first and second choice, the reason we chose 2, I mean, we're obviously not going to limit anybody, but with 18 councillors and 3 committees of 9, we wanted to give everybody the chance to be on a committee, which is why we said 1 or 2. So the people that have opted for 3, if there is a space for a third, yes, but I think I can't tell people what to do, but if it's a choice between somebody who's not on a committee and somebody who's about to join a third, I think it might be advisable to the person who's taking a third slot to maybe concede to the person who isn't on one. But not everybody's voted, so it would have made it considerably easier if everybody had told us what their first and second choice was. That's not a dig, by the way.
I haven't got that far.
Yeah, but yeah, there's, ultimately, if there's a vacancy on a committee and somebody wants to join it, then
I know. I just feel that it may be in the interest of transparency and everything else. The full council electing the chairs may. That's just my opinion.
I think we, I think we put in a term of reference that the committee would nominate chair and vice chair.
Yeah, that's what's in. Yeah,
I'll go to Sean.
So on the point, I don't necessarily think we need to bounce into like our main stage change and work that's been put into these documents. Have the opportunity to feed into this process. It feels like quite a large change that perhaps we're not going to have the energy to discuss now. Also, I just wanted to note that any councillor can be like another voting room, would it be, on committee, so you can join like as many as you want, and you just might be a voting member. So people are super keen and interested in the full scope of the committee, so that's also an option.
That's kind of where I was leading to with the whole, if you're on 2 and somebody's on none, the aim to be inclusive is to let them have the vote, but yeah.
So some people did put forward 3 choices.
I haven't looked yet. have I?
They haven't, so I've got a separate list of those.
Right.
So just for the benefit of those who might not have the opportunity, to put themselves forward by email this evening, I've left their choices off to show what vacancies there are remaining. And then the third choices can be fed in afterwards if we don't have the people.
Well, I think first we need to agree to set up the structure, otherwise we're going to go down a rabbit hole of starting things that don't come in with distance. So back to my original proposal. Has it been seconded? It was, okay, all in favour? Unanimous? Right, excellent. Now we'll move on to staffing the committees.
So before we do everything, I also have a list of all of the outstanding resolutions and decisions that were fed through oversight, which now it's been approved will be fed into each of the committees appropriately.
Okay.
And they will then form part of their work to monitor and oversee. Hopefully that helps. So I've included planning, staffing, as well as the 3 new committees. There are vacancies on planning and staffing as well. We've had some people resign during this process, which you might not be aware of. So it would be an opportunity to fill them all at the same time. So as it stands, as of the emails I've received, this is correct if I'm wrong. This is where we are.
Are you looking to go forward?
Well, I never received an email, so I didn't get them.
Okay.
So, yes,
So would you like to, there's vacancies on every committee, so if you want to nominate.
well, I'd like to put myself forward for these ones.
Okay. Do you have a preference of first?
Probably the last 2.
Facilities and cultural.
Environmental, cultural.
Okay. And apologies.
That's okay. I haven't had my email address yet. So I'm currently still missing, probably missing quite a lot of emails.
Okay. So facilities, environment and culture and heritage, just together.
Can I put myself down for facilities and environmental choice? I meant to do it and I just never got that far.
So that.
Yeah, it's got the other bits.
We need one more for democratic and corporate and.
Yeah.
No one else.
And so just very, very briefly, Vicky, obviously, we've heard roles, Katie, Tom, Lorraine, Alex, and Peter and Morse. So I just want to make sure everyone's got the opportunity to meet.
Well, I would spend my name for decades living back in the corporate, but I think country culture is not difficult.
I'm happy to go forward.
Well, you've got some of the seniors in there. But it's, yeah.
Well, yeah, Kevin's in other committees, so he's happy to see that and see you if you want.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
So Tom's going in democratic, withdraw Kevin, he's in the other ones. The democratic is potentially full, facility and environment would potentially full of the KE and. Sorry, there's 2 vacancies.
Culture and heritage, staffing, planning.
Yeah, so, yeah, 2 for cultural and heritage, 2 for staffing, 2 for planning. Any take?
I have cultural heritage as my third choice. Because obviously that's what I do for my career, so it makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we'll just give the people that aren't in any of the chats, and if there's still a space. So, Alex, do you want any? No, not really, is that?
I'll fill on with staffing.
That thing, Alex. You know, Lorraine, you like to go in?
Somebody's supposed to start, maybe.
Yeah. So that goes for that. There's potentially 2 spots in cultural and heritage for Kevin and Katie, unless anybody else. Ethan. Are you there? No, you're only in 1 minute.
Yeah, there are only 2 spaces there.
So aside from Peter Moore's, everybody's now had the opportunity.
Yeah.
He has been contacted.
He's definitely getting the emails. That's when we spoken to him. And his response was,
I haven't heard from him.
yeah.
So there's 2 spaces left on culture and heritage and 2 on planning.
Well, we've got Kevin and Katie good of office cultural and heritage, so that would potentially fill it.
Yeah.
Planning,
Well, yeah, I'm on those, but planning, I'm happy to go on with the space.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think
Yeah, I've got both
Oh, you have
Katies.
both
Yeah, sorry,
Katies.
I need to use their surnames, don't I? Avoid confusion.
Katie.
Yeah. We've got both Katies are in that one already, so, and you want to join planning as well? Cool. So there's one space on planning if anyone wants it. You can do it 3 times, because it's if you want.
When is plays still?
3 o'clock Wednesday, every second Wednesday. Yeah, I mean, I've struggled with it, but purely because of the roads in summer and driving lorries is a torturous experience, shall we say? Okay, well, I don't think we're going to get any volunteers for that final slot, are we?
So now it's full. I have the working groups that are remaining inactive. So I'll just run through where they now sit, which committees they sit with. So the procurement working group, and these again, correctly enrolled, got the role membership, sits with Democratic and Corporate. So we have Ian, Emma and Tracy as the officer representation. And then I've got Philip Purchase, Ethan Hannah, Jackie Dipping, and Katie Good on that working group. And Kevin. Then I have emergency planning working group, which sits with facilities and environmental, and you have Stephen Hayes and Ian Salton as your officer representation. Kevin Colwell, Philip Purchase, Katie Good, Ethan Hannah. We just get you definitely on those committees. Yeah. And then the last is the winter support working group, which was initiated at the last oversight committee. It wasn't populated, and that now sits within Democratic and Corporate. You have myself and Ian as your officers. We have no councillor representation at the moment, so I don't think we've got that far. So we're just looking to try and fill them if possible, so that we could start a meeting process.
How many do you need in that?
But the others are 4 or 5, so it should be no more than that.
Any volunteers for the winter support working group?
Could you tell me what the working group?
Feeding people. Is it the extension of the sort of like food and heat program we did, or
Yes,
warm rooms?
to decide about the kitchen, the soup things and adding brochure.
Right. So basically the same as what we did last year, and yeah. Any volunteers? So that's Amanda. This is your thing, Amanda.
I don't know. Do you have to be in the committee?
I don't think so, because you normally just report up, don't you?
Yeah. You was recommended to the committee, didn't you? I would have thought.
Amanda?
Yeah.
Oh,
Amanda, Lou, APAB.
Lorraine.
Lorraine.
That's the whole.
Yes, Lou.
No, I've got a question on the working groups. Will other councillors not nominated to be on the working group be able to go? The reason I'm asking is I'm particularly interested in something to but I'm happy to leave the working group and get on with the rest. But I would like to maybe attend and say a few words in support of that. But will I know as a non-member of the working group when to turn up?
I'm sure Peter could be included in that, couldn't he? Yeah.
Officers can advise anyone, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay. So is 4 enough, or do we need? You could just join it, Peter. and
Oh,
make
just
it
see,
fine.
there's no one to.
All right, Peter.
I'll probably.
Yeah, okay, so that's 5. Happy?
Yeah, so as it stands, those are the only working groups that are functioning and running. See, maybe more now after the committee speech.
Yeah, all right. So we now need to resolve the staff.
Can I just ask Tom, I didn't quite catch what he was, did you join any of the committees? I think that catch.
Yeah, Democratic Republic.
Thank you.
I think.
We can't attempt to throw someone on the planet.
Not at the moment. No. But well, I was just going to say that cross vacancies can be filled at any time. About this on the.
Yeah. So John going. Okay. I propose that we start said committees and working groups with names I've just taken down. Seconded, right, all in favour? Fantastic. So oversight is no more. Philip, as chair of oversight, would you like to say anything about?
No, I think I've said everything I wanted to say
Yeah.
about it.
Okay, I just thought I'd give you a chance.
No, it's very fine to be.
Yep. Okay, cool. We'll move on then. To approve the social media policy, or have we finished? Have you got more? Social media. Okay.
Sorry. I'll be gone after that.
It's fine, Frankie. You're welcome at the table. Social media policy.
Hopefully you'll have a chance to read through it. I was only just going to give you a little bit of background. So there was a social media policy in place for staff, which has been running for about 2 years, which was followed by everybody. But there was never a separate policy in place for councillors. So we have joined everything together and brought it all into one policy, because obviously interpreting anyway. I suppose I'd just like to add on the staff policy, we also had kind of a consent form meeting. So all members of staff would then stipulate what they felt comfortable with in terms of publicity. So whether they would like their picture used front or back, they want their name used, full name, short name, all those sorts of things, whether they're comfortable doing interviews, media, all those things. Obviously, not everybody feels comfortable with that. So the intention was that if this is approved, that we would then do the same, but for everybody again. So all staff and all the councillors have the opportunity to say what their consent was, which then everybody would technically be invited to work on. So we wouldn't use anybody's personal information or photographs if they didn't want to, whether it was a staff councillor and likewise some councillors and staff. So that's kind of the additional thing, but obviously until it's approved, you can't get that far.
I feel that probably as mayor, I should be the one that sets the right example, but I'm also being honest with myself. There is no way I am ever, in fact, I would have broken D before I go to bed tonight. Every time Plymouth play football or Cornwall play rugby, I will use offensive language in certain groups on social media. I can't help myself. So, yeah, I'm in a bit of a quandary there because I probably should set the right example, but I'm going to struggle with that one. I don't know who was first. Sorry, Katie.
That's all right. So I think part of this is also an offer of potential press training, which, like I've worked with companies before that have offered it. So if you were interested in becoming, like, I guess, more vocal with the press, it's really useful to learn how they work, and therefore, like, how to ensure that you're eloquently talking through the issue without setting the bias or basically. So it's really worth doing. And I should imagine it's also probably like social media training on there too at this point. And yeah, I would just have that.
But just to clarify, is this my personal profile as well? Only officials. Oh, I can stick to that on my official account.
I think it's just being mindful of the fact that some people may see either your spam.
So when I'm saying fruity things about the Devon cricket team on my private account, I should be okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a grey area, this one, and often causes problems. The difficulty is that as soon as you become elected members, you to serve your community, you are then associated directly with the council. And anything you say, even in a private capacity, people are going to say, well, that person is, is a member of the council. So I don't know if you see Rishi Sunak writing sort of fruity things on his personal accounts and not. So, I mean, I think we need to be a little bit mindful of the fact that it is a little bit more difficult to become an elected member of the council, and it's something to bear in mind. If I can very quickly wipe the floor to say a couple of things. Thank you. So, social media policies are really important for town parish councils in this day and age. As we all know, lots of difficulties out there online, and we can all get ourselves and each other into public waters if not careful. So this is an important document which all councils that I'm aware of in the sector already have in place. It does provide sort of protection and guidance for members. So I would encourage you to support this. And in terms of the training, that's a good comment there. Yes, certainly can provide press training. It's a really excellent idea. Let's go. So yeah, I think we need to engage positively and appropriately with in terms of our online presence.
Quickly as well, the way you do it within my industry is that you want to put opinions on my own on your personal profile, so that people know that it's your personal profile and it's not you as a representative. That's one way.
If I put that on football forum, I would give them written apart for saying it, but I take your point. Right, Peter, you had your hand up.
I did. And I already feel guilty for what I'm going to say.
Go for it.
Right, okay. So the moment that we are elected as councillors, we're invited to abide by code of conduct, which we will sign up to and receive training on. To attempt to introduce another layer of control over us, I think is the wrong thing to do. I have to say that as a councillor, I cherish the right to say whatever I want, whenever I want to say it. Yeah. And there may come a time where we're attempting to hold this authority to account for not particularly positive purposes. And this policy wouldn't support that behaviour. I'm sure it's never happened, but I think that we as councillors stand and fall by our own independence. We won't make that pass.
I put my hand up for a little.
Yeah. You're going to respond directly to him.
I just want to remind certain councillors that may or may not have been here or around the time when we have had serious issues on social media with staff as well as councillors. and be mindful of that when dismissing this.
Very quickly then.
So yes, so just to respond to that code of conduct, absolutely, the board members need to be abiding by that. That this should sit alongside the social media policy. They're not in conflict with each other. The document says we should work together to provide the correct support and safety mechanisms for all staff and councillors.
Okay, I've got a bit of a thing down. I'll start reading it and then you can stop me not get too long. Okay, so I think the intention is really good, and I would say that I personally don't actually use social media anymore, so this isn't a plea for me to start, swearing on social media or whatever. I'm concerned that there's no recognition, no differentiation in this policy between councillors who are not important to the council and do not have to agree with council decisions or actions, even if the rest of the council does. So whereas the employees then have adherence to this policy within their employment contracts, my belief is that politics is by its very nature about discussion, debate, disagreement, and then consensus. So I think that this policy seems to seek to remove council's freedom of speech in this case. I think that it would be helpful to have some anonymised examples of type of social media posts targeting this policy. I ask because although I agree that social media posts should be polite and non-defamatory, the phrase which says all members, including staff and councillors, must engage in social media in a manner that reflects the council values and objectives, and should ensure that online activities promote a positive image of the council and its services. Does that imply that councillors are unable to criticize an action of the council in public? Also, the phrase engaging in personal attacks or hostile behaviour is prohibited. I'd like to see an example of what is considered to be a personal attack or hostile behaviour. Does it, for example, one council criticising another council on social media, is that considered to be a personal attack or hostile behaviour? What about the phrase making controversial remarks or engaging in online conflicts? Who decides whether something is a controversial remark? What if the councillor contradicts or corrects a member of the public on social media? Is that an online conflict? I've seen that many, many times with members of the public saying something on social media and a councillor popping in and saying, you haven't got that one. That's not what's happening.
Me and Kevin skate parks before you could councillor actually.
How are these things going to be prohibited? Are they going to be good with new code of conduct before we don't risk code of conduct violations? This policy doesn't actually say that, it doesn't specify. It says that things are prohibited and things that aren't allowed. It doesn't say in terms of councillors what the actual accountability and punishment is in the sense of that. So my belief is that this social media policy should be amended to explicitly acknowledge the different circumstances that employees of council and councillors are in, and describe more clearly the conduct which is acceptable and unacceptable for both groups and the sanctions that are applied to the policy.
Well, as the Mayor alluded to, I have been known to be controversial on social media, and as such in the past before it was co-opted, and now I will use terminology to apply to tourists and people who moved into the area, not dissimilar to Mr. Jennings' terminology, which may be termed derogatory language by some people on the statement. There are lots of things that I have done in the past on social media that I would stand up to defend myself for, which would most likely fall foul of this policy. Where I think there is a case to be answered is if members of this council are making comments or any sort of personal attacks towards members of staff. I don't believe I've done that at any point in history, least of all when I've been a member of the council. So there's some obvious elements where we should be mindful of the organisation we work for, we represent, and should also be mindful that our comments will be taken de facto
as the comments of an employer. We have this kind of quasi employer-employee relationship that is a little bit awkward to define, but we all know it exists. So there are obviously lines that we shouldn't be crossing. But I agree, I agree with Pete and Philip, that this is very over, to me it's overreach. It's overreach, and potentially I could get myself into bother on social media very, very easily just by having a heated discussion with somebody. If somebody believes it's a good idea to put in X number of hundreds of houses in view, and we're all going to be occupied by people who can afford to buy those houses because they aren't money elsewhere in the country and are moving in, I will be against that, and I might be against that in terms that maybe fall foul of this particular book.
I believe I was guilty of that not so long ago, actually, Kevin. Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of this is kind of common sense to me, the like stuff about consent, I think is really important, stuff for communication, I think that's really great, but some of the points that people have just raised are making me think perhaps this isn't the final form of what our social media policy looks like, and perhaps it needs to be deconstructed a little bit and made a little bit more tailored to the needs of us as a council staff, because we do want to make sure that we're protecting staff from the kinds of behaviour that in the past has been completely out of line from councillors and people. So I do feel like this is necessary to just be up to speed with where we should be. We should have a social media policy. The fact we don't have one that is up to speed is kind of weird to me, but maybe it doesn't look exactly like this. So I'd love to see it be put into one of the committees and looked at in a bit more depth, and to have a little bit more nuanced conversation about it, because I don't think everyone being overly reflecty in this environment is going to get us to where we need to be without kind of excessive confidence.
Mike, sorry.
I've got a Katie and then come to you.
I think I was completely saying that, but I think the first side to that is just agreeing premise or not, if you want a social media policy for houses or not, and then it can go to the relevant committee to put feedback and iteration, basically. That makes sense.
Yeah.
All I was going to say is the code of conduct looks about civility and respect. And if that can't also be reflected in what people are saying on social media, then why is it worthy of being in code of conduct? That should extend to social media as well. And I think there's a possibility to be able to play the ball and not the map in answering to people. You can have an issue or a conflict with a policy or a decision that's different from attacking an individual. And I think that's what this is seeking to protect.
Right. Sorry, you have your hand up, right?
I did have my hand up, but can I respectfully defer to your hand up? You're on that hand up before me.
Fair enough.
I'm not going to say that actually, because Ian just said it absolutely perfect. It fits within code of conduct anyway. To me, this is a bit of a no-brainer thing. Also, we can conduct ourselves nicely online with our council. And I think, like Ian said, there's a big difference with how we conduct ourselves towards other people. We can still get our point across. It's not going to be, silencing us, and we're still allowed to say what our opinion is. But it's how we say that, and how respectful we are with people. Which I can't see the bad thing.
Yeah, I take your point entirely. The trouble is somebody mentioned it, I think it might have been further, who decides what's offensive? Me and Kevin have no issue using the word Emmet. I don't find that offensive at all. When I'm in Spain, somebody calls me an Emmet, I'm cool with it. Yeah, but that's the point. So do we have to put ourselves into the head of the most tweet person on the internet and edit ourselves accordingly? Or do we have free speech?
Like some of the comments that have been said in this chamber tonight, I think have been offensive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, the fact that it's being allowed to continue it just shows exactly why we need a policy in place.
That's the thing, is deciding on what's offensive, you know. Unless somebody says to me, you're a prophet. But I don't, you know, other people, obviously, I understand, like I said, you know, I think twee is the right term. Some people get very upset at what to me are minor things. And that's not to say they shouldn't be upset, but how do I put myself into their headspace? When I've grown up in a working class environment through the military building sites, I'm not in work more than 5 minutes before somebody's swearing. That's my environment. So how do I put myself into the headspace of somebody that would, you know, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying, how do I or Kevin work out?
On a basic level, maybe think about what rules have you got for your own children. Do you allow your children to go around saying that? Well, that's what I kind of try and make things up sometimes. You know, if I'm teaching them not to call that person that, then I shouldn't do that.
Yes. I let my kids say Emmett, but that's because they hear it from my entire family saying it. Yeah, all right. Steve.
I'm going to talk from the position of a teacher and a trade union representative. One of the things that concerns me about this policy is it pretends that there is a level playing field between staff and councillors, and there actually isn't. Staff as employees, I think it's absolutely sensible that there should be a social media policy, because as a teacher, I can say to you contractually, I'm obliged to obey a social media policy and a whole bunch of other things that I have to abide by in terms of public behaviour. And I think that's perfectly sensible. It can be frustrating for teachers sometimes because of the right to free speech, but those social media policies actually protect teachers. If you know the policy, then it gives you a set of boundaries and it reinforces it, and there is a level to that. The reason why I say it doesn't actually, there is a difference between staff and councillors, and the difference is you have a social media policy, and if you as a member of staff do not abide by the social media policy as agreed, then you are open to misconduct and the whole procedure there. But councillors aren't. We have a different system, and we don't judge each other. We have a system which is operated through formal council and the rest, and that's the code of conduct, and that exists there. And I have big doubts about, I take actually what people said about the exchange that you have from a political perspective as a councillor or as anybody involved in public debate, because you can have respectful exchanges, but they are not always constructive. They don't have to be constructive. I would never want to engage in derogatory, discriminatory, defamatory, or offensive language. But certainly as a member of staff at a school, there's certain words in this room that if I used, I would be open to dismissal. And that's perfectly right, I think. But I'm not a councillor in that group. And that's a different process. So I'm accountable to the public, I'm accountable to the code of conduct. I understand the grey areas, whatever. I actually accept that's the way we should be behaved. But what's the consequence going to be for a councillor? And who judges them if they breach that social policy? And I don't think that's worked through that. I think it's perfectly sensible to update and renew the social policy, but I do think it needs to go into a committee somewhere and the detail of it worked out so it's fair to everyone and sensible.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. Councillors and Mayor.
Yeah.
Wish you all the best.
Thank you. Who else had their hand up? Right. Yeah, I'll go Katie, Lou, then Peter.
I was just going to say that as a basic human, you know what's sensible, what's not, you know what's right and wrong, what's going to upset someone. But there's a difference between that and having an opinion. I have opinions, and we all have opinions. Probably why most of us are here, because we have those strong opinions. And to be able to go online and voice those opinions, share those opinions, and have debates with people about things that we believe in, that is okay. But I think that this, I mean, I've only just read this now because I didn't receive it, so I've just read it, and I think that there's not a difference between, it needs to be clearer, like, you know, just be a nice human, like you can still have your opinions and be you. We're not all just gonna be like, I feel like I don't want it to mix all just exactly the same, whether it's our personal life or in our council role. Like, you know, you have to be this particular way because people will think this way about you. You're a councillor, and you know, however you got in this position, you're here because you have opinions and you care. So you should be able to voice them, but just don't be a horrible person. Yeah, there are things that I've heard and hear that are offensive, and also don't want to hear them. I know that I wouldn't do that online, but to have a debate with somebody about something in a respectful way is perfectly okay. But I think it needs to be very clear on here that, you know, just be a decent human with a bit of empathy and understand that if you're going to say that, is it going to upset someone? Think about it before you send it on. And if it's not, and it is just, you know, debate, conversation, then carry on. But it's, I think in that respect, it's pretty easy to know if you're being a person or an person.
Good? No? Yeah.
Thank you for allowing me a second go. I just was curious as to what an average member of our electorate would think if they knew that councillors were being monitored and judged by council officers as to their output on social media.
I mean, I think personally, with the size of my social media footprint over the years, I think every single person that's lived in this town for more than a couple of years knew exactly what they were getting with me. You know, I had a member of the previous council went into my work and complained about something I said online, and we had the entire free speech discussion with my boss, and he ultimately came down and said, yeah, this is entitled to an opinion. So for me, I don't think, unless you're very, very new in Bude-Stratton, I don't think anything I say or do online is a surprise to anybody. But yeah, it's a fair point. I don't know the answer. It's you and Philip have raised some points that have made me think that, yeah, there's a free speech argument here. Kevin.
The other point I was going to make is its discourse in relation to what group you're with. Now, I like to think I can kind of debate at multiple levels, and there are some social media groups that we recognise as being more of a bear fit than others. And within the context of that bear fit, I might be very restrained and yet still overstep a mark that's been set for me here. I think I just keep coming back to this overarching view that we are ultimately responsible. We are the servants of the good people of Bude-Stratton. And if they decide they don't like the way we talk, or they don't like the way we look, or they don't like the way we vote, they can get rid of us. I would be very reluctant. I have worked in local government, and I have worked with the handicapped on. And one of the things that I was grateful for when I left that was the ability to say exactly what I thought and exactly the way I wanted to say. And I'd be reluctant to put the handcuffs back on this time again.
Chris.
Well, as you know, I don't do any of this technology stuff. So I think you have something that we really need to be careful with, because as you say, there will be people out there who will look and see whatever you're doing, and if they don't like anything,
I
mean, they're.
literally just wrote that down.
Everybody's entitled to opinion.
Yeah.
If you must make it up. If you truly believe in something, then that's your opinion, that's fine. But you mustn't have people making up and taking it out to be your opinions.
Stuff that's not.
And there are loads of people out there just waiting for this to stop.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you know.
I've literally just written down that there is an entire form of online activism.
Yes.
Whereby you jump on something somebody says that you take offence to. Somebody make a point that the offence is decided by the offended. And you know, Owen Jones of The Guardian is the king of the pylon.
Yes.
Yes, if we write in rules like this, we literally open ourselves, and we wouldn't know whether those complaints came from within Bude or not. Anybody with the loosest grasp of a VPN, which I would suggest is most people, would be able to spam us with reports if we said something they didn't like, or if they just didn't like us and wanted to take us out. Yeah, there is a massive can of worms here that I hadn't even thought of before walking in the room. Jackie.
But I don't know what to suggest is on point that very well, we're not going to decide this here, that it goes to a committee.
Yeah.
Business itself.
Yeah.
Interest of time and.
Well, yeah, we could. Yeah.
Saying look around. I just wanted to say, I wanted to make absolutely clear that I'm not advocating people doing anything online that's horrible or nasty or discriminatory or anything else than that. I'm not that sort of person, and I don't deal online. However, I do think that as you know, we are politicians, and so we are going to sometimes disagree with what happens at full council, or maybe even what our fellow councillors do or say. And you know, and actually we'll come to an election point at some time, and we may disagree even more. And want to emphasise the difference between the different stances we take. And I don't necessarily know that from the case, but it might be. That might be the truth of the world that we're in.
Yeah, as a this, I was thinking it's a bit bizarre, we don't have them already. And I think, oh, yeah, well, just for the officers, you know, previous council took the similar decision to reject the policy prior to everything escalating online. And I think it's a really good idea. I just think, like it's been said a few times, that it needs to be gone through a little bit more, like words like controversial. I could join a group that people here, like members of the public, typically don't agree with. For example, like the view pride and engage with them. It's not controversial. Some people typically would be apparently, so it just gives a bit of clarity and a bit. Yeah, I think that's really excellent.
Did you put a proposal on? Was it a proposal or not?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know it's
I'm trying to work out whether we've had a proposal when it's seconded or not. I haven't actually heard anybody say yet. But on.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, and said some of it actually, that, you know, the democratic system is an adversarial system, and especially in elections. I mean, I think all the rules, the last town council election was particularly adversarial. But saying somebody's being offensive, you know, will that be used to avoid answering reasonable questions?
Well, that's kind of what I was alluding to with the activism thing.
Yeah, so I think
it's a very good way of shutting down a conversation that you don't want to have. It's the claim offence, and you know, it is an online way of doing things, but go on then.
First, I'm confident to have this. So there's a massive diary online, exactly which words, when, what contacts is, how serious they are, etc. So you want a massive list of words. But I'd like to propose that we take this proposal and move it to call for it. Yeah, take it.
B and C, just call it B and C.
Those words.
Yes,
Uh,
okay,
for discussion.
okay. Forget that. All in favour? Think unanimous? No, against? Abstain? Okay, cool. Right. To approve the finance report. The schedule of payments made between 18th of August 23 and 7th of December 20. Anybody have anything on these? Sorry, what? All right, you need to leave. Sorry. So you've got nothing to ask. Anybody got any queries on it? All right, I propose we accept that or note that. Approve.
Second that.
All in favour? Unanimous. Cool. So after the 18. Well, she's leaving the room. Schedule of payments made on the 8th of September 23. I'll second that. I'll try question.
Some of the, this is the made on the 8th of September. Again, for the payments to be made, right? Is that the one we're talking about?
We are.
Yeah, there's quite a few things on the Amazon one that I know for fact can get a screw fix, and I feel like in terms of like, no screw fix for a massive company, but we already buy other stuff from screw fix. I think just a little bit more thinking about the facilities team going to screw fix to pick up stuff, maybe they pick up other stuff for other teams, because it's got less impact. So I'm just putting it out there. That's what I have to say on that. Thank you.
Anybody else? Not like the food, those payments. Seconded, all in favour? Yeah, so Katie, you're back in. Right, and C, an overview of accounting financial position, reserve summary, which was was, as I recall, like I don't know. Which one are we on?
Yeah.
That one there, right, yes, okay. So, you want to go on this, or?
Well, let me say that I, since I've been here, it's not that long, so I've, started to take a look at finances and, in particular, there was a potentially, proposal coming forward, which might have to be withdrawn, but we'll come back in a second. But at the time, I was concerned to make sure that there was a pocket of funding available for any proposals that were being put on the table. Either that they were actually in the budget as budgeted for this year, or that they were there was reserve pots with the name of the project on it. And so when I looked at closely at reserves, I saw that actually the situation was it's an interesting situation which I've detailed in the report. So the there's a spreadsheet which is also circulated, which our RFO has been put together, and which details the ring-fence unavailable funds and those that should allocate on review. I think that spreadsheet could be possibly presented in a way which is a little bit more accessible and clear. So I'm going to be working on doing that just to clarify things a little bit more for you. But I thought I would just pick out in sort of in words, if you like, for those who prefer some sort of description rather than just looking at sort of figures. the main points, which just indicate that we do not have a huge profit of money sitting there in the so-called reserves, which is just available for us to tap into as and when we would like to embark on a new project. I feel that that's probably a little bit of a lack of communication on our part in terms of communicating that to members. But certainly there is not, there is general funds, as I've explained, which needs to cover our running costs if we have some kind of disaster like another COVID or a flood or what have you. And then there are various pockets of funding which are sort of earmarked reserves for certain projects. So once all of those are added up, it's clear that there isn't actually funding left available in some sort of slush fund, if you like, which could be used for additional projects. So I'm just wanting to make sure that members are aware of the current situation, and that we're obviously very careful with the funding and use it appropriately. And when it comes to budget setting in a month or two, then we'll obviously be looking at this again more closely and also the budget for the year ahead. So if there are any questions on that, I can
I wanted to point clarity on. Sure, it is as written and not typo, but project overspend, the recommendation that we is to increase it by that amount, not to that amount.
But that's up to members to.
Well, yeah, I know it's rough.
Maybe investigate a little bit further. I mean, I've received updated projections from the facilities manager in terms of his budget for this year and next year, the various projects that he's working on, which show that there is actually more expense anticipated than budgeted for. And Lord's Court really is an unknown at the moment. At the moment, the facilities manager is not able to get into the property to do a full assessment on what might be required, and we know that there are going to be works needed. So the situation is, we just need to be mindful.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted that. I wasn't sure whether you wanted it moved to that level or by that level, but by that level. I don't know that the hand up that side, plus Philippa.
I followed the situation with the finances very closely in terms of Keith and his explanations of things. And I would suggest that Keith is a very risk averse and cautious person who is very keen to make sure that our finances are in a good position. His explanation, as you say, of some of the reserves differs a bit from yours. He certainly wouldn't have used the words absolute bare minimum in terms of the general fund. In fact, my understanding from him was that we were asked to reduce our general fund because it was too high. We were also asked to allocate our reserves effectively into pockets of money. Because when we first arrived here, we did have a massive number, which was just basically project reserves. And the first iteration was that we split it into this is projects for next year, this is projects for the year after, this is projects for the year after. And again, our auditors were keen that we showed how our reserves were being managed and being reduced because they felt that our reserves were too high. So I think personally that some of the kind of allocations that we have are, I'm thinking of the word zombie, that might not be the right word, but what I'm thinking of is that we've put some things into buckets where we've got no plan sitting underneath them to actually spend that money. So things like resilience planning, we've got a neighbourhood plan now, and we know that the council is going to give us money for that. We've got conservation and interpretation, we've got economic development and support, we've got a figure for a community land trust, we've got economic regeneration over and above the 48,000 for the town team. We've got 25,000 for youth provisions, we've got money left on an energy redress scheme, which something that BCP asked us to provide. So there's a number of, I think, queries in terms of our reserves. My understanding as well about our civil funding, and again, Peter probably can remember, you know, from the last council, but the last council decided that when we got civil payments, so once unable plans in place, we started getting civil payments. And they passed a resolution to allocate this to community land trust. Now, my personal opinion is it's long past time that we allocated those civil payments actually into Lord's Court, which is the affordable housing that we have now bought. So we have got £58,000 in civil payments that former council have given us that we haven't spent anywhere and are actually on a ticking clock. So those civil payments will disappear if we don't spend them somewhere. So in my view, it would be not a complicated discussion to have at a committee where we talk about moving those civil payments into a Lord's Court fund. And that would still leave us, if we wanted £50,000 to either set up a community land trust or to give a donation to the North Carolina Community Land Trust, or to allocate that to something else, because now we may feel as group councillors that we've actually satisfied our requirement to provide affordable accommodation. So I think personally that although I can understand how you feel that the money is completely and fully allocated, I think if we dig under the covers of this, we will find that there's a lot of money which hasn't got any particular plan, and it would be a good idea for councillors to come back and say, is that money, was that vague name that we gave that money, is that an aspiration of this council anymore? And if it isn't, then we can push it back into our project reserves. And I'd really quite like for that to happen, you know, fairly quickly, in fact. So rather than tying ourselves into a resolution which says we will not spend any more money on projects for this whole financial year, which is your recommendation, I think that we actually should go back and as a group of councillors, we should look at these reserves. We should, you know, engage our system 2 brains. And I know that's horrible with money and everybody hates doing it, but I think we need to do that. We need to sit in there and we need to look through all these pieces of money, and then we need to say, okay, yes, absolutely, we agree with Tatiana, this is no more, there is no more money, we've got sent before. No, we want to reallocate this in ways that more closely reflect us as a council. So my proposal would be that full council instructs the Democratic and Corporate Services Committee to carry out a thorough analysis of the reserves allocations at the earliest opportunity and come back to full council with a recommendation for any reserves amendments, a breakdown of allocated funds that are truly allocated to actual projects with actual plans and available project funding for this.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that's a very good analysis of the situation, and I would very much welcome some support in scrutinising the council thoroughly, in particular reserves. I agree that there should be any on the accounts, as you explained, as you mentioned, and certainly that is something that should be happening routinely anyway, but part of the budget system process. And yes, it would be very good to expedite that, so very happy to do that. Quite clearly, there needs to be some sort of very clear decision making around all of those pots of funding, so that members are all happy with which projects we're supporting, which ones we're not supporting, and just clarifying the funding associated with those. I would just like to respond regarding the general reserves, because I do stand by my analysis that it is the absolute bare minimum, in that the recommendation for town and parish councils is that they keep in general reserves anything between 3 months and 9 months worth of operating costs. So by definition, therefore, we are part of that. My understanding is that before COVID, we had 9 months of reserves in that general reserve pot, and that has now been utilised in various ways, and so it's now sits at 3 months. So
in terms of responding to the advice of the auditor, then I think that has already been met, and that it is then at that level which probably should be increased. That's what I would recommend anyway. So I do think that that statement was actually correct. Yes, there's an increase.
Jackie.
Well, thinking around that question, you see where you are.
Yeah.
We're all going to do the same. I couldn't agree more with what she said, but second to vote.
Yeah, I'll let the people that have their hands above the chance to speak. Yeah, that's the one issue I'm having with this table. Where before I can see you all, now I can maybe see 3 or 4 of you at a time, and I've got no idea when hands are going up. But go Kevin, Katie, John, Peter.
As the sort of resident elephant in the room sort of, there are 2 big things that have happened that I can see that have changed since we last looked at reserves. One is we've got more people and we're paying those people more, and I think that's overall a good thing, but it's certainly something that is impacting on reserves and is impacting on the amount that we need to keep back in order to cover these 6-9 months running costs. Those 6-9 months running costs now would be more than they were perhaps a couple of years ago. And the other big elephant in the room, which I take perhaps more responsibility for than most, is Lord's Court. And I think Philip was absolutely right. I think there are reserve pots which could be used to address some of the issues in Lord's Court and legitimately be used to do that. But that strikes me as a little bit of sort of quickness of the hand deceives the eye in council terms. I think we ought to have a look as a corporate body as to how we want to proceed with Lord's Court and to how we want to account for Lord's Court. I look at it from the other end of the telescope from life because I see it sitting there as a massive asset to the community of Stratton, a massive asset to the people that live there, but also a book asset to this council. And maybe it's a book asset that we might not want to fund the development of through reserves, but maybe want to go down a borrowing route or some other financial route. So I think as well as looking at the general way in which reserves are allocated, we need to have a good think at whatever committee is appropriate, how we fund Lord's Court moving forward.
I bet the event to serve that committee would be another way of seeing this would be useful to have like almost like prioritisation vision for as well, because obviously this things that we're now very much legally responsible, because we really like to highlight like we can do this now, like for example Lord's Court is definitely going to be more of them people there, right? And then there's other things where it's like this is obviously a really nice thing and things like that. So trying to figure out how, again, maybe sort of rearranging here of this spreadsheet, like referencing when the decisions were, which you've done a bit here already, but then also how to figure out how we could start to involve that prioritisation.
Peter, Sean, and then we're going to vote on political proposals.
Sean's first.
Sorry, I either look at the person speaking or I have to look at the people that are listening. Sorry, Sean.
So yeah, just basically want to second a lot of what Philip said. I've got quite a concern actually about the still money time limit, and would be really kind of great if we could earmark that and appropriate it to thoughts about what are appropriate. Also, there's a lot of resolutions that we've made, kind of aspirations to the community, for example, about allotments of Howells Road, which are not incurring us too much cost, but if there are kind of things going on in the background with that, like surveys and stuff. And so if we decided to not commit to any more projects, which would further incur expense to the council, I feel like that kind of hobbles our previous resolutions as council. So it seems a little bit dramatic to me to be taking that line, and I prefer a little bit more granular detail. So yeah, just like what the said basically would be great. So we can.
I really welcome the opportunity to shine a torch into some of the dark corners of our dusty reserves. Absolutely happy with that. I was thinking along very similar lines to Philip. However, I just wondered if we need something that perhaps the new committee structure, each committee, I'm sure we will have a budget, and I think the reserves should be looked at alongside the revisions of the budget. So what I would like to suggest that we prepare to include is that these reserves are effectively allocated to committees. They are looked at annually as part of the budget procedures, and the individual committees, I imagine, would probably all make their recommendations for the budget, recommendations for the reserves. You will then probably have some overarching acceptance by the Democratic and Corporate Committee. You might have to scale to the bigger picture, but make final recommendation to the council.
Personally, I think that the instance and enhancement budget, which I'm quite shocked to hear is becoming so heavily spent when it hasn't been spent for 2 years. It's just been dribbled through, and now all of a sudden it's nearly talked out. I personally think that probably will sit in the Facilities and Environment Committee, but I can't think necessarily anything else. So I suppose my view would be that we took a granular look at all the reserves, and then we could come back here, and then if we wanted to, we could decide whether any of them could be split out. Maintenance and enhancement budget feels like an anomaly to me, to be something that's in our reserves that is being spent day to day on maintenance of our building. That doesn't sit really right anyway. Yeah. So I suppose my feeling is, personally, I think the first iteration needs to be done before we made a decision on that as a second iteration. That would be my fears. But if anybody wants to second your amendment to my amendment, that's the other side.
Can I come back on that? Because I think it would be a really good start to the committees for them to understand exactly what the responsibilities are. And the reserves, I think, having that really good scrutiny of what those reserves are and what they might be used for would be a really good start for the committee work. I'm hoping to sort of influence the council by saying that you could then become part of the annual financial review process the council will go through.
Would you willing to accept the amendment, or?
I would certainly be willing to accept the amendment saying that part of the annual review process, but I think that there needs to be a first iteration which just takes a look at them as a whole. Because I think what I'm worried about is that if we split all the reserves out as they stand to the committees, then each committee will never want to lose that part. They'll never say, "Oh, okay, that project is not something we want anymore."
Right, clearly, no, I don't want to go to the vote.
No,
yeah.
That's where it should have a filtering process by the Democratic and Corporate. You can take the bigger picture.
If you are proposing it.
Yeah, I personally don't want to accept it, but I don't know what the.
Well, we've got a proposal and second is on the table, so it's been seconded, so unless you're willing to accept an amendment, we're going to vote on it now.
Just as a procedural matter, if somebody else wants to propose an amendment, they're entitled to do so.
Yes,
Yes, they are, I know. I just said we would go to.
It doesn't need the approval.
I just asked if you were willing to accept the amendment.
Right, okay, I'm just.
Yeah.
If council as well,
would you like to propose another amendment?
Well, if Councillor Boyd's amendment is something.
Yes, okay. Is anyone willing to second?
Yes,
Yes.
Yes, he is.
So
we now need to vote on the amendment. So all in favour of, just to clarify.
So just to be clear, the process is the individual committees.
If we could stop indicating to the rest of the room how we want them to vote while somebody's talking, that would be good. Carry on.
The process would be individual committees look at the budgets which are going to be allocated to them. Stage one.
Yeah,
Stage two, democratic and corporate, oversee the whole and make a recommendation to full council.
okay. Everybody clear on that? All in favour? 3. Against? Abstain? Did you get that?
Yes,
Yeah, right, okay, so now we're going to go back to the original, unless anybody's got an amendment. The original proposal, which was to move it to democratic services.
That's my amendment.
Yeah, yeah, right, all in favour? Against? Abstain? That passed. Yay. If I just get the hammer, that end the meeting. Right, okay. Where are we? Can you take item 10 off? Yeah. Okay, and you're happy for me to just move right on without an explanation? Okay, cool. So we'll go to 11, sorry, to that.
Like to make a comment on that as an individual councillor. I'm actually really disappointed that we're not going to be responding and looking at this proposal in public. And I understand your thoughts about that, Ethan, but I feel like this is a really timely proposal. It was really well put together, really well researched, and it's a real shame that we're not looking at that tonight. I thought it was a really excellent proposal. So,
Okay, I only know that it's come off the table, so yeah. Okay, all right, well, we're going to move on to 11 then. To receive updates from lead councillors on community activities and outside bodies. A is.
I had a couple of discussions with councillors recently where it kind of made me feel that perhaps councillors weren't aware of the work that's been done within the council in various guises in terms of trying to achieve the climate emergency declaration from 2019 and to deliver on the target of 2030 to achieve carbon net zero emissions. So Steve, Hayes and I have worked together on the list of all the things that have been done, which I put in this report. I'm not intending to kind of go through them, so I hope that you've had a chance to read them. But what I would say is that the facilities team has been incredible, really. They've picked this up, they've picked this agenda up, and they have really motivated. It's something I think that Steve deserves a good degree of thanks for. He's basically turning us from a fossil fuel powered council into an electricity powered council, and he's doing it so effectively. The slightly slower aspect of it all is the kind of carbon offsetting, because understanding that the term carbon net zero means that you are offsetting as much carbon as you're emitting. It doesn't mean that you're not emitting any carbon at all. So the kind of other hand of the plan is our land management approach. So our no-mow-may activities, the trees that we're planting, the scything that's happening, wildflower trails, so on and so forth, those kind of things. So that I think is happening slightly surface, but nevertheless is happening as well. So we are tipping the scale pretty significantly towards that carbon net zero in 2030. And I think we should recognise that as the council. We should pat ourselves on the back. We've also done a lot of things for the wider community in terms of that, in terms of reducing the carbon in the community. So, you know, an absolutely massive thing we did is our support for the Climate Partnership. That was initiated in a room, in this room, sitting with Ian and with Robbie when he was a councillor here, bringing together the grant application process, which achieved a £200,000 grant, which then enabled the Climate Partnership to achieve the £2 million And we as council have facilitated that and got banking facilities and so on and so forth. We've also allocated £40,000 for environmental work. Originally that was for an energy and carbon officer. Now we've got other avenues for that. We've got an environmental policy, we've set up a meter reading system, we've strengthened our parcel hiring agreement. We're using the formal council development plan document when we comment on plan applications. We've set up a tree champions committee, the tree champions group. We've reviewed our investment position. We signed fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. We've carried out bio blitz. We've supported the Friends of the Earth to create a community orchard on our land. We've changed the planting approach in the present car park, and we've also installed green roofs on buses that we are managed by Fernbank.
That's really great.
Yeah. So we have done an awful lot, and we have got an awful lot still in the pipeline. So lots of more things that are actually going to carry on. And the Oversight Committee, recognising that all this work is happening, the Oversight Committee was, and me personally and Simon, I know, are really keen to actually understand where we've got to in terms of what the carbon position was when we first declared the climate emergency, where we are now, and what the glide path is to getting to net zero. Are we going to get there by 2030? Are we going to get there years in advance, or are we missing the target? And so we have got resolutions which I'm very keen to continue to progress to employ ideally university students to undertake that review with us, so that we as council can sit here and say we are doing as much as we possibly can to make a revolution, or we need to do more because we're not going to. So that's my report.
Thank you. That was the Q&A. It was a quick one.
I'd just like to comment on the impressive work that's happened with the council and in terms of its agreement credentials. It's the most secure council I've ever come across, and I'm sure there's be some sector awards that we can apply for, and I'll be looking to that, and that would be a chance for us to promote our activities. It's amazing.
That would be good. Yeah, right. Over the Stratton show, or Stratton and Posby show, on that. Your playback. Who's doing this one, Kevin?
Well, I put it forward for an agenda item, but I'm stealing Tom's thunder really, because Tom was instrumental in getting us to go to the Posby and Stratton show again, and I believe it was very worthwhile. Vicky was there on the day as well. We didn't meet a huge number of residents, although a certain regular member of the audience was there, and we did have some meet the councillor stuff, which we will feed back into the appropriate parts of this council. We tend to sometimes get a little bit wrapped up in St Kilda's bag. I'm as Cornish and proud of it as everybody else, but I accept that we've got more in common with Holsworthy than we have with Houston. And fostering those cross-border corporations are really important moving forward, not just with Holsworthy, but with other towns and parish councils in Torridge. I think that the show was a good start. We have been invited by Holsworthy Town Council to share their tent for our next show, so we don't have to cart around the gazebo, and we can be presenting as not a single corporate body, obviously, but as part of a group of councillors that will include Torridge District, Holsworthy Town, and us. So it presents a uniform front, and as Tom, I'm sure, will remind everybody, it is the Holsworthy and Stratton show. Tom has the details of the parishes which come under the jurisdiction, and what I can say is we had a good time. It was well worth attending, and hopefully the council will instruct us to go back again in future years.
Yeah, just on the cross-border thing, in a couple of weeks' time, I am attending the mayor of Campton's sort of day, so to speak, meeting all the mayor's authority. It'll be the second time I've met that group, because you are right, as proud as I am to be Cornish, cycle path, trains, all of that lot, transport goes that way. So good relations with them. I am very keen to foster and I'm attempting to do so. And I will probably update you as to how that goes. Fine. Darky, you had your hand up. If it's polite, I'm going to allow it.
I'm glad, because to be honest, I had a hell of a job to find it.
What,
With their tent, the time I phoned them, I was very noticeable.
We was a little bit out in the Wales, but we was there. We was there.
We're building relations with them, Darky. I'm sure they'll let us. All right, cool. We're going to Tom and then we'll.
Yeah, just for the somebody, you know, like keen on history and heritage and culture and all that sort of stuff. The Union of Stratton is shareholder in the Union of Holsworthy, because Holsworthy there wasn't 100 of Holsworthy. Holsworthy came with 100 of Blackthorn. So just one thing, there was a planting of a tree to commemorate the coronation, and it just appeared, you know, I just felt that, you know, this town council should have been represented as much as possible. It was only small ceremony, but I'd like to have seen this town council represented as much as possible. Hopefully, as Kevin said, it's just something we can develop in the future years.
Yeah. Okay. The county,
I'll say something, but I think if you want to, you know, chip in, it's really about the meeting that we had. You may or may not know that town team contracted a company called WC, and their partner organisation is QW, to create a vision and investment plan for the town using £48,000 worth of council money, which obviously is kind of filtering through our reserves as we speak. Now, LUC and SPW carried out desktop research and analysis, and then undertook a number of community engagement activities and stakeholder discussions, which we had the opportunity to attend. Some did, some didn't, but a lot of the town did filled out the online surveys and the in-person events. They've now produced a draft vision and investment plan, which describes the vision, objectives, and a project portfolio. And that project portfolio is built around three things, which is business and creativity, community housing, and public health and transport connectivity. And each theme of projects will be managed by a working group of appropriate organisations and businesses. So around 15 new projects that are proposing for the town, things like multi-creative work hub, smart town infrastructure, the total space of teenagers, community-led affordable housing, new wayfinding, signage and branding, public realm improvement such as parklets, outdoor seating and pedestrianisation. And send round the draft of the document that I received today, which was updated following the meeting yesterday. So it is quite a comprehensive now project portfolio proposing. LUC seems to think that they're funding opportunities for these projects, so they haven't. I don't think that they've suggested any projects that they think are not able to be funded by a central government or local council or other funding sources. So they're now working to identify funding sources for those 15 projects. So what we're now looking at in terms of the town team is a project portfolio which is bigger than the kind of partnership project portfolio. This is a big portfolio of projects they're now anticipating, and I would imagine a bigger spend than the partnership. There are really some really significant projects in here. The town team are now, I suppose this is the nub of my kind of report back to you. The town team are now proposing that they become the new body for prioritising and delivering these projects. So in the past, town council has been a leading partner, and the town team has been kind of reporting body to the town council. They are proposing that they switch that around. So, but recognising that if they do that, that the town team can't be the kind of body it is now, which is just a few volunteers doing the best they can with a membership that ebbs and flows. You know, sometimes people will come along, sometimes nobody comes along, that kind of thing. It needs a robust governance structure where they're going to, so they'll have to reconstitute the town team, so they have a clear constitution, they'll have an appointment process for the town team, they'll have voting rules, chorusing, that kind of thing, dispute resolution, they'll have a steering committee, and they will have, I think, paid body of staff. And all those people will have to adhere to codes of conduct, no case and so on and so forth. So this, in my view, will become a similar structure to BCP, and I think that the town team will come forward to us in the very near future, because they are very, very keen that once this engagement that we've seen in October, that there is the momentum is carried forward, and the town team is reconstituted at that point as a some kind of legal entity, and then we have this structure set up. In terms of the town council, in effect, that relegates us to become one of the members of the town team. So we'll have a place on the steering committee in the same way as we do in terms of BCP. We may be asked to lead on some of those projects. We may not, because there may be other organisations that are more appropriate than us. We may not even be asked to lead on any of those projects, depending on what the town team decides is the most appropriate way to deliver these projects. So that's where we are at the moment. My feeling is projects are brilliant. If we can get the funding for them, it's brilliant. If we can move viewed in all these fantastic ways, it's brilliant. But we need to accept that the town council is not going to be a big player in terms of that anymore.
That isn't what we were told when we signed up for the founding. That's the exact opposite. I can see Darky twitching in the corner. That's the exact opposite of what we agreed.
I told you that we're going to be puppets of that, didn't you?
So my question would be, who votes to get on the town team?
Well,
and what would the point of us existing be if they're going to completely renovate the town with us as a sideshow?
It's an interesting dilemma, I think. It's an interesting
I would need some very strong convincing to hand over power.
And that is within
that's not the deal we yourself.
That's within our gift as well.
Yeah.
Because we set the town team up and we can dissolve it.
We sat here and assured members of the public that we would be the decision-making body. And to rail back on that, we may as well all just resign now, quite frankly, because that'll be the end of us. Yeah. Right. Kevin, Katie, sorry, I'm looking that way, so I don't see
Yeah, I won't make a speech. I'll just ask a question. What is the driver for this? Is it to secure funding, or is it effectively partner?
I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I know that in the past, this government's approach under was that elements of it would move away from local authorities, that would move into these constituted bodies. There used to be this, a government department which has now been disbanded and probably called the Department of Levelling Up or something now anyway, that actually set up these town team type structures. And in my personal view, with the aim of disempowering local authorities, disempowering democratically elected people in favour of empowering businesses, community organisations, so on and so forth. Now, I don't know whether that is still the case. I don't know whether the government funding is still being channeled to those particular organisations, and therefore we aren't able to actually help get that funding. So it makes sense that the town team does. Or whether the town team and the consultants see bodies like town council as a rather than a dynamic place where where massive public realm infrastructure projects can actually be pushed through.
As I said on the second first town team, so we can look a little bit in. We did get an email today, basically asking for 3 different sorts of things. So they're asking basically for us to review the project on list. Then they've attached like some proposed programs, which is saying rationales and outcomes, and also they want some early thoughts on already delivery and governance. So what I think in terms of process is that if we put this on to like Embark, put it on, make sure everyone received it type of thing, because I don't know if everyone's personally noticed other moments. And then we try and figure out a way to ensure that we get everyone's opinion on that. But obviously, people saying it's going to be like, just please read through the documentation, please read what's being proposed, and like Sarah to me on the comments basically, so that we can arrange, like, this is our formal, these are our formal responses to what you've just asked us to do. So that would be the way that we move forward.
My first question will be, why on earth would I trust anything you say, having done a complete 180 on me?
Yeah,
I don't mean you personally, but I mean the town team.
Yeah, that's fair. But like I said,
It's
email that to us, like the developer, and I think that's what concerns I don't have.
Yeah, no, but I want that question asked.
Yeah.
How will I take anything you say seriously going forward?
As one of the officers that attended the town team briefing yesterday, I think it's worth pointing out that the gentleman from SQW who was presenting what they proposed in the programs that they were putting forward made a point of saying, I wrote it down in my notes and underlined it, it's not a fait accompli. And he welcomed feedback from all of the members of representatives of the town team on what's being proposed. So this isn't what is going to happen.
It's just what they want to happen. That's their recommendation.
It's a recommendation, but as I say, I think you circled it, not a fait accompli.
And that was a recommendation that came from the city. It didn't come from the municipality.
Right, okay. Were there any other recommendations?
What, in terms of how to govern?
How to do this other than completely city control?
I think a lot of that is down to, I think it's going to be much more project based than I think we realise. There's not just 1 or 2, 3 projects. There is a lot of projects, and some of them are going to be business led.
Right.
Like, particularly, this is an independent business led thing. Like there's completely not in our remit, completely nothing to do with us. Great economic development, but not for us to do. So I think that's part of them working out that as well.
Sorry, we're running late, so I'm not going to come to the public anymore. I'm sorry, Chris. Can I get that document?
Yeah. And I didn't mean to suggest it was a thing. I said that is what is being proposed.
Right.
I've had discussions with Tony on the town team before that I didn't feel that the town team was properly constituted. That I didn't feel it was representative of the town. That I didn't feel that it was transparent, and that I felt that people who are dealing with public money need to have all those things in place and need to have the code of conduct and the principles and all the rest of it. So to some extent, I welcome that, but those things are being incorporated into the town team's constitution. I think they should be there, whatever the town team takes, because people dealing with public money should be prepared to sit in a room, being filmed, voting on how that money's spent.
That was very much going to be my thing. This whole idea that the town team don't speak in public and don't answer to the public. If they're going to be given that kind of money, they need to be accountable to the public.
And I think that they have absolutely right.
Well, let's wait until we see the documents, unless anyone's got anything else on here.
I did have a hand up for one again.
Did you? I was probably looking that way. I apologise.
Yeah. Right. I've got a list of points that I want to make. I'll make them as succinctly as I can. But I think you as chair deliberated the work of the town team very unfair. Anyone around this table is going to be listening to you, thinking that they're doing very bad work. And I know that you haven't been to that.
I haven't said anything about their work.
Very unfair position.
I just understood the promises made to this body
Right,
I
okay.
mean, what's been
Let me
proposed is the
speak
exact
very
opposite.
So first of all, you asked what the drivers, what is the town team about? And it's very clear, if you look at their terms of reference. But if you want it in the 2 words, it's about economic vitality of the town centre, recognising that the world is changing and that perhaps with a bit of central thought and planning for the future, instead of just accepting change upon us, that perhaps you might be able to take some control of the change and understand what might be necessary coming forward, and to aid those decisions into a position where you can be funded by a bigger funding body such as central government and Cornwall Council. I've always been a great supporter of decisions being made at the lowest level possible, by the people that are affected most directly by it. And I think the town team is exactly right in what it's doing. It's trying to get those decisions being made by the people that are most affected. Another point that I wanted to say is the town council cannot possibly be responsible for absolutely everything that happens in this town. And to have a body like the town team that is stepping forward and offering to work on behalf of this economic vitality piece that I said, I think we should do nothing other than absolutely welcome it. Question its governance, absolutely rightly, especially if it's spending our money, absolutely rightly. And that's the reason why we have councillors on the team. But I'm really surprised that you as chair sit there and criticise so heavily and openly the work that's being done. I think you're wrong to do that, very wrong. And you should have an open mind and go along to these meetings.
I went along recently, but to respond to that, what I criticised was somebody looking in me in the eye and promising me that this body would retain control. And at the very point where we're about to start making changes and decisions and money will be spent, they flip that 180. I've not criticised the work, I've criticised the lie.
This body still does have control. Exactly, still the same.
Yeah.
But if we don't wish to relinquish control of this, we have the choice not to.
Yeah.
So nothing has changed.
I'm still allowed to point out that it wasn't what we signed up to, Peter.
Right. Any project that is mooted by the town team that doesn't get support of the town council, I've got to say, is incredibly unlikely to be going ahead. It's not going to happen. And Mr. Jennings cited the triangle project. Well, the town council owns the triangle. So if the town council says get stuff, it ain't going to happen.
Yes, in fact.
Right, let's be honest. Right, the companies that we have used, or the town team have used as consultants with the ZUC and SPW, they've said very clearly within the weeks they've had more positive consultation with the public than almost anywhere else. And bearing in mind they're working nationally and internationally, they have very high levels of confidence. They have great consultation with our community. And the final response to what you're saying, it's a developing situation. The town team didn't know what was going to be presented back to them by the consultants until the consultants start coming back with information. And if the consultants make recommendations for a different structure of governance, well, that is obviously what the town team is going to do. They're going to come back to the council and say, dear Bude-Stratton Town Council, we think, given the work that's been done, that maybe a slightly different format of delivery might be appropriate. And if we agree, we agree. If we don't, we don't. But for you to sit there and use your chair in such a way that you did, I think is wrong.
Well, we'll have to disagree on that one.
We do?
Yes, that's fine. Okay. No, we're not going to public, are we? We need to move the meeting on. Anybody else?
It's about the council updates, which I asked, like, as in just leave council updates in general.
Oh, right.
Because I've got some time to.
Okay.
So in terms of the economic development plan, lead of I've talked to the digital permanent county, make sure that happens. The biggest one is there's a big push for skills camps. So these are like skills boot camps, which will start on the 1st of April and then go on for a year. The expression of interest is on the 8th of September. So if there are any groups in Bude that are basically interested in running like skills camps, and then it could be like loads of things. So like digital is one of them, but then it's like agricultural or like it's anything that you feel like as a company or as an industry you feel like you're lacking that skill shortage. I know that BCHQ, for example, have always said to me that they're desperately short to try and hire people. So So, and I know that our Peter so is very keen on engaging on this program as well. So, basically everyone get it out. You know, it's not mission or otherwise. If it's businesses that are desperate for trying to hire people and can't get it out there and get them to just contact me and I'll forward that on. And then the other big thing is, which is somewhat time critical, is so the primary school, Bude Primary School have been paying out their own money to add dropped curbs into the footpaths that the Cornwall Council owns around that area. And they don't, it is correct, because I have seen their contracts. The in fact, they actually asked the council to have to do this. And they basically, apparently, the person that they had asked said yes, but I generally disagree that the school should be having to put their own drop curves in that area and have to pay out them, but we wanted to do that, basically. And they want to carry on doing that around side there as well. And I feel like we really do need to push on now in terms of, well, that area should be accessible for everybody and it should be up to primary school to do that. So.
Yeah.
Mine was just a quick update from the most recent BCP partnership meeting, because although it's not much at it, obviously that's one of the things on that one. The first thing is to note that there was quite a significant unspend on the financials in this, I think it's quarter, but that can be corrected if it's wrong, mainly due to multiple unfilled staff positions. So there have been some kind of staff on board and then leave, and also just inability to get the kind of staffing that is needed for specific projects. For example, the tourism project's really struggling with recruitment, so that's kind of pushed an impact on the timings because of that staffing shortfall. Really good news in youth engagement. Kate, who's I can't remember her official title, but she is basically making really good headway with the primary schools and secondary schools, trying to create children and young people focused youth juries to mirror the adult process that obviously everyone has seen. Hopefully, that's what this is kind of happening. So that's really positive. It's only in the initial phases and the planning phases, but if this kind of goes forward and happens, it could be potentially the first youth jury of its kind to happen in the country, which is great. There's been an incredibly huge uptake in community energy plus inquiries, domestic and commercial. So that's really good news. So that's one part of the project, is basically CP helping individuals and commercial entities lower their carbon emissions through various funding avenues, like helping them engage with like different ways of basically offsetting their carbon and becoming greener and cleaner. So that's really great. Comms engagement has been really positive because of a lot of kind of traffic and also good nationwide press, which is really positive. And the partnership are about to appoint the well, pending appointing the evaluation tender post. So there were 12 applications for that. 3 organisations were interviewed, and this is a large piece of work which basically evaluates the process throughout, which is something the lottery has asked for to be put into the project. So that's a significant piece of work, and I think pending references that organisation will have been appointed by the time I'm finished talking. Thank you. Since the meeting, the kind of application date for the community jury is closed. Overall, there are 171 respondents, which is a 2% response rate, which is apparently right on the mark for this type of occupation. And the organisation that is carrying out that work said that that's really good, and they are kind of really, you know, they're feeling really positive about that response rate. Clearly, people are keen to get involved. So from those respondents, 43 people have been chosen, and they're currently being contacted to take part in the community jury.
this process, obviously from 171 to 43 individuals, went through a random sortition process that was representative of the demographic of this community. So hopefully out of that, there will be 40, maybe 41, 2, 3 people, depending on a certain amount of dropout. So it looks like it should be fully filled for that to commence in, I think, September, early October. I haven't got the date written down.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so that is really super positive, and that's the main kind of engagement part of the whole kind of. I'm sorry, I'm very pronouncing. Anyway, it's a huge opportunity for our community, and essentially every household got a letter and had the opportunity to be part of it. There were 8,500 letters sent out. So hopefully everyone saw one. And yeah, a lot of people put their name down, and hopefully we'll have a jury soon that will then create some kind of what's the word? We voted on it last month. Recommendations, thank you. But that we and other kind of local governance bodies and other people in the community can follow recommendations. I'll stop talking now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, very briefly, we did have representatives on the formally to be proposed second voting previously, different those in the but I shall be attending on behalf of the council and attending a meeting on the next Tuesday. Going to be gone so to rejuvenate the very difficult very challenging prospect for it's still yeah. Given that we're talking the other role about cooperation between the two town councils, this is one of the areas that is
I did discuss that with the mayor opposed of even he came over and helped judge the carnival, and we had a good time touring the castle and so on. So yeah, it does. Maron Church appears to be looking from our point of view. But
oh yeah, there are several sticking points.
Yeah. All right, cool. Thank you. Anybody else with an update? No. Good.
That's where we are. To receive items, correspondence.
I don't know anything.
Fantastic.
Not bad. To note the date of the next meeting, Thursday the 5th of October. I propose we note that. Somebody seconded it. Seconded. All right, all in favour? Agreed. Yeah. To resolve that in view of the confidential or special nature of the business to be transacted, it is advisable that persons publicly excluded and instructed to withdraw. Chris and Darcy, yes, please.
More corruption by our receipts. Every time there's money involved.
Oh, sorry, somebody seconded it. Yeah.
So can I just make, I'm going to abstain on this one, just for my own reasons. I don't believe that one of the items should be confidential, but that's just you personally, but I'm not willing to stand with them for any of the others.
Okay, you can abstain and vote, okay? Yeah, cool.
Thank you.
Is that seconded? Did anybody second it?
I'll vote for you.
Right, you are right. All in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to discuss that. That's not gone through. Against? 1. Abstain. 2, 4. And that's gone through. Yeah. Right.
Can I just seek a clarification on this? Because we don't know what our officers are going to bring forward to us as part of these agenda items, I'm assuming.
It says on there to receive, to approve recommendation of staffing committee regarding arrangements to some salaries. So we're going to discuss people's wages, which is the confidential nature of it.
My point being is that if our officers suggest that we go to confidential section,
yeah,
then we really have no alternative but to do so.
Well,
and
yeah.
I accept that.
Yeah.
If after the event it turns out there should be no profit, well, we can make that window for officers.
Yeah, I think the confidential thing is obviously the salaries.
Yeah.
We can't
I
talk
say
about.
that as well, that's,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I think we all know why, you sent an email to all of us, Sean, so we're all aware of your objection. Darky, Chris, could you please leave?